time. So past, present, future is one dimension of time. A second dimension of time has to do with the time horizon. Are you more focused on short-term results, or do you view things over the long term? The short time horizon is concerned with getting things done right away, present action, immediate returns, immediate gratification. But some cultures have much longer term time orientation. I have a friend who worked in Cambodia, and he was talking with one of the national workers there. The national worker was unhappy with the foreign director in this organization, and the national workers. So my friend said, "Well, would you say something to him? Would you try to work it out?" And this national worker said, "No, I'll just wait, because 5 years from now he'll be gone, and then things will change." Now, for me, that's a really long-term perspective. I'm not very willing to just wait 5 years for those things to change. But from his cultural perspective, that's how he viewed it. He can just wait. That's a much longer-term perspective. So another way to analyze how time plays out in a culture is in terms of the time horizon. Is there a short-term time horizon or a longer-term time horizon? And then one final way of looking at culture, there's another spectrum that I want to talk about, and that is do you view culture in terms of relational time? I'm sorry, do you view time in terms of relationships or in terms of a clock? And let me talk about those. Clock time emphasizes punctuality, getting things started on time, tight scheduling. If you're in a culture that operates on clock time, it's considered disrespectful to show up late. If you're in a culture that's marked by relational time, things function much differently. They kind of get going whenever everybody shows up, and there's sort of a subtle understanding of when that is, and it doesn't have to do with what time the watch says. There are cultural understandings of time expectations and what it means to be on time, and it's not a very punctual sort of thing. Schedules are somewhat foreign in cultures that work on relational time. Now, this difference between clock time and relational time is important to understand if in working cross-culturally. If you have people from two different cultures in one church, and one runs on clock time and one runs on relational time, those two groups are going to get really frustrated with each other, because the people who run on clock time are going to say, "Hey, it's 10 o'clock Sunday morning. We got to start our service. It's time to start. And why isn't everybody here?" And people who operate more on relational time will show up at 10:15, 10:30, and they don't think anything of it. That's normal. That's the right way to do it. And they don't understand then why another set of people is frustrated with them. People on clock time feel like it's being disrespectful. People on relational time say, "Well, you're more worried about your schedule than you are about people. Just relax, let it go." What we've got to do is understand these are different cultural ways of looking at time, and I would suggest that we've got to be careful about assigning a value judgment to the way of viewing time that's different than our own. That's our immediate tendency in any cultural difference, is to make our own culture the norm and to judge the other culture as somehow deficient in terms of that norm. Okay, so we've got risk as one category, time as one category, and the third category I want to talk about in this session is communication. What's the primary form of communication in a given culture? And again, setting up a spectrum. On one end we have implicit communication, and on the other end explicit communication. So with implicit communication, things are said much more indirectly, more subtly. Things are said more in maybe a suggestive manner, hinting at it. Implicit communication relies significantly on common understandings between the listener and the speaker. So if you're in a family that relies on implicit communication, a parent might say to the child, "Well, looks like the grass is getting long," or say that the wife might say to the husband, to use the stereotypes, "Looks like the grass is getting long." and the husband understands that to mean it's time to mow the yard. Okay, but it wasn't really said it's time to mow the yard. It's much more subtle than that. That would be an example of implicit communication. My brother and I, we grew up in the same family, and we kind of think in some of the same ways, and our family used some of this implicit communication. So there are times when my brother and I are together, even as adults, where we just have understandings of what's going on, or how to approach a situation, or kind of what the other one wants, just via this implicit communication. We don't have to spell it all out for each other. There's some cultural understandings. But in a culture marked by implicit communication, the cultural road marks, the cultural road signs are not clear. There aren't clear markers along the way to let you know what's going on. And that can be a problem for people not used to that culture.